Order of operations. To help remember the order of operations, think of this saying. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So let's go over what this really means. So the P, the please, actually is for parentheses. So that's the first thing that we will deal with when looking at a problem. Next, E is for exponents. Then we have M and D, so that is multiply and divide. So that would be the next step. And then our last step will be to add or subtract. So now let's go over our first example. Example 1. Find the resistance of an electrical device that consumes 216 watts and draws 2 amps of current. Use the following equation. So we have P for power, I is for current, and R is for resistance. So when we plug in our numbers, we have 216 on the top. 2 raised to the second power is equal to the resistance, which is what we're looking for. So when we see this problem, we'll rewrite it. Our first step will be to just write out P, E, multiply, divide, and then add and subtract. So let's look. We don't have anything in parentheses, so we are done with the first step. Next is exponents. So we see we have an exponent on our denominator, or the bottom number. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. So we have 216. Now we have 2 raised to the second power, so 2 times 2, which is equal to 4, which is equal to R. So now we've dealt with our exponents, we solved for it, and our next step would be to multiply or divide. Well, we see that this is a division bar, so we're going to have to go ahead and divide. So our next step would be to go 216 divided by 4. So 4 can go into 21 5 times. So we go 1 minus 0 is just 1, 2 minus 2 is 0. Then we go ahead and bring down that 6, and 4 can go into 16 4 times. So now we have the resistance, which is equal to 54 ohms. And this would be our final solution to this problem. So let's look at another example. Example 2. Solve for the following. We have 7 minus 5 raised to the third power plus 15 divided by 3. So now let's get our little list together. So we have P, E, M, D, add or subtract. So let's go ahead and look at parentheses first, because that's our P. We see we need to deal with that parentheses first. So let's go ahead and just rewrite everything. Now, when we look inside the parentheses, once again, we can follow our list of operations in order to figure out how we handle it. So our first thing that we need to do inside the parentheses, as there's no more parentheses, is deal with our exponents. So 5 raised to the third power. So this is 7 minus 5 times 5 times 5. Notice that this exponent is only attached to the 5, not attached to the negative. So it's just going multiplying 5 times 5 times 5. So that becomes 7 minus 5 times 5 is 25. Then times 5 is 125. So we go 7 minus 125. Now we have 7 minus 125. So we could just go 125 minus 7. off to the side. Now, this 5 we need to borrow. So we go ahead and take from the 2, make it a 1. Now we have 15 minus 7, which is just 8. Then bring down the 1 and the other 1. And because it's more negative, we have a larger negative number. We know it's a negative 118. And now we can take it outside the parentheses to then deal with this. So then we have plus 15 divided by 3. So we've dealt with our parentheses now. We don't have any exponents anymore. So our next step will be to multiply or divide. We see then we need to handle this next. So we would go negative 118 plus 15 divided by 3 is equal to 5. So now we've dealt with our division. So our last step will be to add or subtract. And so we can see that this is our final step as well. So we have negative 118 plus 5. So what we can do, this can just become 118 minus 5. So we go 8 minus 5, which is equal to 3, and then bring down the 2 1s. And because this is a larger negative sign, negative number than a positive number, we know this is negative in the end. So this whole number becomes negative 113. So now let's go look at one final example. Now find the power of an electrical device if the current is 3 amps and the resistance is 20 ohms. We're going to use the following equation of power is equal to current squared times R. Then when we plug in our numbers, so our current is 3 amps, our resistance is 20, we have the following equation, and we need to solve for P, which is our power. So we first can go ahead and rewrite our list. Now, the first thing we need to deal with is parentheses. Now, we don't really necessarily need to deal with the parentheses inside because there's no operations to perform. So we don't need to do that. Our next thing will be exponents, which we can see we have here. So we have power, which is equal to 3 times 3 times 20. So power, then 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And we're going to multiply it by 20. So now we've dealt with our exponents. And our next step will be to multiply or divide, which we can see we have a multiplication. So we have 20 times 9. So 0 times 9 is 0. 9 times 2 is 18. So power is equal to 180 watts. So that would be the power of the electrical device.